Canada, and indeed Quebec, are places where we are a secular society. We respect deeply people's rights and freedoms, including freedom of expression, freedom of conscience, freedom of religion. And it is unthinkable to me that in a free society we would legitimize discrimination against citizens based on their religion.
Well, there you have it. Justin Trudeau talking about a new bill in Quebec that is moving through the provincial parliament, the National Assembly, as they call it there. A bill that would instill laicity, which is sort of an anglicized version of the French word for secularism, in the public sector. It would ban any symbols of religiosity. I'm quite sure that the precipitation of this was the Muslim hijab. I can't imagine that in the entire province of Quebec there would be more than a few dozen Sikh turbans or Jewish yarmulkes in the public service. But anyone who walks through Toronto, Montreal, or Calgary these days sees thousands of hijabs. Joining us now via Skype from Montreal to talk about this is a woman in the heart of Quebec, our friend Barbara Kay, a columnist with the National Post. Barbara, great to see you again.
Hi, Ezra. Thanks for having me.
Well, it's a great pleasure. This is a religion-neutral law, as in it doesn't just target burqas or hijabs or things like that. It's anything. But I've got to think it was sparked by the ubiquity of the hijab these days. Would you agree with me on that?
Yeah, I would agree with you, except I would say it goes back further. It goes back to Bill 62, which was specific as to face cover. So it actually starts with the niqab, which is very repellent to most Quebecers. And that was going to pass, but then the Liberal government fell. So this is picking up where it left off in the Charter of Values. This has been discussed in Quebec for so many years now, religious accommodation. In any case, it's something to do with Quebec society, Quebec culture that most people in the rest of Canada do not understand, including, by the way, our Prime Minister, who so solicitous of religious freedoms. Is he the same guy that wasn't going to give money for summer jobs to people that didn't believe in abortion in this free country?
That's a good point. You know what? And of course, not just that, not only did he make Christian groups sign an attestation that they support his views on pro-choice, for example, but he also barred any pro-life Catholics from running again for his party. So suddenly he gets a case of religion when the religion in question is Islam, I think.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen a lot of hypocrisy on his part anyways in the last, so maybe he should have kind of taken a break and not commented on Quebec's legitimate right to pass laws regarding this type of limitation on freedom of speech or freedom of expression, if you like. So, and by the way, where was he? Well, I guess he was too young. Where were all the people commenting on the depravity, as Andrew Coyne put it, of this bill when Bill 101 came into in this free country, when Bill 101 came in and told people that, whose first language wasn't French, that too bad you couldn't get a lot of jobs in the civil service if your French was not impeccable. Yeah. So there are limitations on everything. And the Supreme Court of Canada actually said Bill 101 actually defies the Charter of Rights, but we're going to put our stamp of approval on it because we feel that when a culture is concerned about its fragility or its future survival, then that's a greater good. And it's okay then to limit certain rights. So, we've been through this rodeo before in Quebec, but nobody cared about Anglophone rights. Now it's Muslim rights and everybody's hysterical. It's kind of double standards, wouldn't you say?
Right, but I want to zero in on that. When you say everyone's hysterical, I would agree with you that the Anglo media, including some of your colleagues, you mentioned Andrew Coyne, are hysterical. But in Quebec, you mentioned that the Liberal government had introduced a similar motion, a bill. This is introduced by the Coalition Avenir Quebec party. I know that the Parti Québécois, I understand, has been even more aggressive in what they want. So it's almost political common ground in Quebec. Every party, I would say, I mean, not every party, I don't think that there's a hard left-wing party there that's a little bit Islamist that probably wouldn't support it, but I don't even know that. So I think that parties representing about 90% of the electors support this. I think that's why, Barbara, you don't see Trudeau or his other henchmen, especially his Muslim MPs like Iqra Khalid and Omar Al-Jabra, they're not calling Quebecers racist, Islamophobes, alt-right. If they were Anglos who wanted to do this, they'd be called hateful. But yeah, I mean, we saw some gentle criticism there a moment ago from Trudeau, but I haven't seen any of the Muslim MPs in the Liberal Party call this a racist or hateful law. Have you?
No, that's a good point you're making. And of course, they really shouldn't if they value their election chances in Quebec, because you're right. It is widely supported. I mean, it's perhaps not universally supported, but in the Francophone sector, it's what's called a landslide approval. Yeah. And even amongst Anglophones in Quebec, close to 50% support it. So even though the media, the Anglo media in Quebec, the radio stations and all that are very hostile to the act, ordinary people, and if my mail is any indication, which I'm getting tons of, very high approval ratings, even amongst Anglophones and amongst Muslims.
That's an excerpt from the Ezra Levant show. Every day I do a video monologue and then I interview an interesting guest, and then I end by reading my hate mail. But you've got to subscribe to it, which you can do at the Rebel.media/shows.